Because of my line of work, I collect data on cases like this, and if absolutely necessary, conduct my own independent investigations. Most of the time, my findings contradict the official story, which occasionally leads to problems with law enforcement. My specialty is investigating paranormal phenomena, things the official investigators outright deny. There haven't been that many truly worthwhile cases, but those I've encountered have stuck in my memory forever. There were a few more high-profile and astounding cases, but I neither have the time nor the energy to talk about them. Besides, I've got a new case on my hands now, which, according to my friend Sam, is supposed to be much more interesting than all the rest. We hadn't spoken in about a year, and all of a sudden, he took the initiative to rope me into a new investigation. "Hey, bro, how have you been? Getting ready for New Year's, I bet?" I paused for a moment, trying to figure out his real reason for calling. Congratulate me on the upcoming holiday? Nah, that's not like him at all. Sam was just as much of a daredevil as I am, maybe even more reckless. Every once in a while we'd team up on a case, but only rarely, and only in exceptional situations. What was he after this time? I could sit there guessing all day, but I had to answer anyway. "Hey there, buddy, Happy New Year to you too." As for what I'm up to, well, what can you do with New Year's right around the corner? Pretty dull, if you ask me. Sam let out a knowing chuckle. "Yeah, that's nothing new. I'm the same way. I need that adrenaline rush. When it's all calm and quiet, I'm ready to climb the walls. Been keeping a close eye on your escapades. Haven't missed a single publication. I know you've got a contract with a few paranormal magazines." After some small talk, Sam got to the main point. "Anyway, bro, I'm not calling just to wish you a happy holiday. I've got a situation on my hands. I don't even know where to begin. It's weird, but what's causing it is anyone's guess. I'll only spill the details after you agree to join me in investigating it together. A collaboration, you might say. Can you be more specific? Am I just supposed to say yes without knowing anything? Maybe you dug up some pointless nonsense and now I'd have to waste all my holiday time on it?" Sam snorted into the phone, sounding mildly offended. "Nah, bro, it's not nonsense. I knew you wouldn't say yes that easily." "All right, but keep this between us. There's a certain place where every New Year's Eve people inevitably end up dead." I raised an eyebrow in surprise. Sam's story definitely intrigued me. A place where people die? And it happens regularly? What is it, a travelling guillotine or an electric chair for thrill seekers? Sam started from the top. "Listen, Nick, here's the thing. The first mentions of this place date back to the late 2000s. That's when a group of young people was celebrating New Year's in a house out in the woods. It was a rental, and if needed, hunters could use it as a place to stay. There's this massive spruce in the yard. The strange part is, no one ever died there in summer, only in winter on the night of the 31st of the 1st. The first victims were only found on January 5th. Temperatures were brutally cold, so the bodies were well preserved. Eyewitnesses said the entire yard was soaked in blood. Frozen innards were discovered on the roof, and one of the victims' heads was stuck in the chimney. No other footprints were found except those belonging to the deceased. It was a dead end. The police immediately concluded they'd killed each other, maybe OD'd on something or were drunk out of their minds. They found the bodies of 3 girls and 3 guys torn to shreds, arms, legs, pieces of flesh everywhere. Investigators discovered those remains hanging from the branches of that damned spruce tree, you see? Like some creature had decided to use them as macabre decorations. Naturally, the investigation went nowhere. They never found the killer, or killers. Then a couple of years later, it happened again. This time, a young married couple. No one survived except the owner's dog. The people who found the dog on January 3rd said its fur had turned white as snow from sheer terror. And once again, the investigation came up empty. From the outside, it looked as if the occupants had murdered each other. The walls were covered in blood, and that cursed spruce in the yard was again adorned with bits of human remains. The place sat empty for about 5 years. Then the death toll started rising again. An elderly couple decided to spend New Year's Eve there to recapture their youth. The man's body wasn't discovered for a month because it was perched on top of the spruce like a holiday star. Almost nothing remained of the woman. Seems like forest animals did their work. She was identified only by a small bracelet on her arm, a gift from her husband on their golden anniversary. There were more victims, but the last time it happened was 7 years ago. Since then, the cabin's been abandoned. Recently, I learned that a group of young folks plan to celebrate New Year's there, so I decided to join their group, pretending to take part in the festivities. But let's be real, I'm after something else. You know exactly what I mean. I can't handle this alone. It's serious. That's why I need your help. So, are you in? If you say yes, I'll send you the coordinates. Sam's story set my mind racing. My first instinct was to answer immediately, but when I weighed the situation, I realized there was more going on here than it seemed. So why reach out now? Is that place really so dangerous that even Sam can't handle it on his own? Then again, it's not like I had much of a choice. All right, I'm in. Send me the location and everything else you have on it. I'll do whatever's necessary. Sam approved of my decision and hung up. Despite how horrifying his story was, I felt a rush of adrenaline. It's that feeling you get when a hunter picks up the trail of some elusive veteran beast that successfully stayed hidden in the deepest part of the woods. None of my past investigations could compare with the terror we might face in that hunting cabin. As I listened to Sam's account, there was one thing I just couldn't understand. A secluded cabin in the woods makes sense, but someone must have been taking care of it, cleaning it or something. I definitely needed to get a closer look. Soon I got Sam's briefing on the place, and once again I was shocked that this cabin had stayed in the shadows so long. I leaned in close to my laptop monitor, reading the info Sam had collected and imagining his gravelly voice. The first incident of multiple homicides in Westwood Forest took place on the night of December 31st to January 1st, 2008. The second was in 2010, when a young couple perished. Then another mass killing in 2015, again on New Year's Eve. Since then, the place has been abandoned for over 7 years. And now a gang of bikers and their girlfriends plan a giant New Year's bash there. From the report, Sam clearly knew which gang it was, the Night Harpies. They were notorious. Broken noses, ribs, missing teeth. If these bikers partied at some local bar, trouble was a sure bet. There'd be a fight with fists flying and knives drawn, and someone would inevitably get their guts spilled. Pinning the blame on the perpetrator would take ages, because bikers never rat each other out. This was the very gang planning to party at that cabin, ignoring its grim reputation. Toward the end of the report, Sam suggested we dress up as bikers and crash their New Year's party, passing ourselves off as fellow riders. Just the thought made my skin crawl. Where does he get these ideas? Is he out of his mind? Me, a biker? Sure, I've ridden a motorcycle, but it was a sport bike, not a chopper with handlebars a mile long. And where was I supposed to find leather gear? Forget it, he can go on his own. Man, how did I get roped into this? Sam had cleverly reeled me in, no doubt. He piqued my interest first, then told me I'd have to play biker only after I'd taken the bait. Well played. And if I ended up spending New Year's Eve with these night harpies, there was no guarantee they wouldn't kill each other before any dark forces even showed up. I spent about half an hour venting my frustration, but when I thought about losing such a valuable opportunity to participate in a dangerous experiment, I caved. Fine. I'd wear all black, but not leather, maybe denim or something. Anyway, the plan laid out by Gravedigger, my joking nickname for Sam, given his penchant for grim and lethal affairs, went like this. On December 31st, at around 10 p.m, we'd arrive at Westwood Forest separately, making it look like we didn't know each other. We were to bring self-defense tools and the gear to record photo and video. If the night passed uneventfully, we'd pack it in and head home, shutting the whole thing down for good. Rereading Sam's instructions, I couldn't help but notice some irritating details like the ban on firearms. So what? Was I supposed to show up with a can of pepper spray? Right, let him come with his little taser for dogs if he wants, but I was definitely taking a gun. I'd recently bought a Ruger Mini 14. A real beauty, 7.62 caliber. With that, I feared no one, not even whatever might be lurking in Westwood Forest. First, I phoned my parents to let them know I'd be gone for New Year's Eve and Christmas. Son, where are you going? I hope it's not another one of your abandoned haunts. Couldn't you just spend the holidays with your family? Why do you need this negativity? My mum asked, worriedly. Naturally, I lied through my teeth that I'd be with my girlfriend. Right, a girlfriend. The kind that leaves mountains of corpses and torn-up bodies behind. I could tell my mum was a bit upset, but I'd come see them on January 1st, if I survived. On the plus side, if I uncovered anything worthwhile, I could sell the piece to a few magazines that specialise in paranormal events. That's basically how I make my living. Sure, it's risky, but who isn't facing challenges these days? I had actually planned to pick up a cat from the shelter. For some inexplicable reason, cats never stay with me long. One got run over, another torn up by a pit bull. A friend had recently offered me a great ginger cat from the shelter named Meatball. Perfect cat name, right? I was torn about whether to adopt him, but then I remembered where I was headed the next day and decided to hold off. Who knew if I'd even come back alive from that cabin? Who would take care of Meatball then? No, I told myself, I'll deal with this business with Gravedigger first, and I started packing. I knew the next day would be hectic, so I prepared as thoroughly as possible. After all, my name is Nick for a reason. For these outings, I usually bring a backpack with all the essentials, a compass, a hunting knife, spare ammo, several pairs of rubber gloves, some basic forensics tools, and a few sets of extra batteries, not to mention supplies. Canned stew, a thermos of tea, and a chocolate bar. With that, I'm set for a small-scale war against the forest fiends. I wasn't sure what Sam would bring, but I do love a good snack, especially once everything is said and done, when you can sit down by a fire with friends. But never mind. I stuck my trusty revolver in my jacket pocket. No silver bullets, holy water, or any of that nonsense. It's all crap. A bullet can take down anyone, a standard lunatic or some not quite normal freak tied to the occult. Personally, I prefer to burn monsters, figuring that cleans up every loose end. So it was clear to me that if things went bad in that cabin, I'd just torch the place, crumbling shack and all, along with whatever entity might be lurking inside, be it an evil spirit, poltergeist, demon, or deranged maniac. Everything fears fire, both earthly creatures and those beyond our realm. I decided to carry my flammable materials in a separate bag. The last thing I needed was to turn myself into a flaming, screaming candle if the bottles ignited on my back. I spent the whole evening and the first half of the next day on pins and needles. My instincts were telling me I shouldn't have agreed to Gravedigger's plan. Something about this story definitely didn't sit right. But I couldn't put my finger on what exactly. Toward evening, a text from Sam arrived. Hey Nick, hope we're still on. I ran into a bit of trouble, but don't worry. I'll be there. If you arrive before me, don't sweat it. The bikers know there'll be a few guests, so they won't be surprised. They started partying around 6, so by the time you get there, they probably won't bat an eye, even at a goat-legged demon. Oh, and one more thing I almost forgot. Leave your car at the fork in the road and ride a snowmobile to the house. I'll mark the tree that shows you where it's parked. Anyway, Nick, good luck." His instructions didn't shock me. In a snowy forest, a snowmobile was definitely better than a car, especially my old Ford from God knows when. I decided to leave around 9 in the evening. The temperature was slightly below freezing, and the newly fallen snow crunched pleasantly underfoot. While I warmed up the car, checked things over and so on, I figured that'd give me time to scope out the area. 10 minutes later, I was driving along the highway toward the nearest stretch of forest. I had never spent a New Year's Eve in such unusual circumstances. A biker gang, a house with a terrible reputation. Couldn't get more original than that. The drive took about 40 minutes. During that time, Sam called again. "Bro, how's it going? You on your way?" "I've been messing with my battery all day. It died on me. I think I'll still make it, you know how my baby can be, and try not to get on these bikers' bad side, okay? I know how you are, hot-headed." "All right, see you soon. Wait for me, okay?" I shook my head and eased onto the fork in the road. True to his word, Gravedigger had set up a sign. An arrow pointed under a small shelter of fir branches. Sam's quite the planner, I thought as I got out of the car. But he's definitely on edge, almost like he's planning to walk here on foot. Where's his gear? If it all goes sideways, what's he going to do, fight evil with pine cones? I slung the bag of flammable liquids onto the snowmobile, adjusted my backpack straps and started the engine. Man, what a machine. This thing just bolts off, I said to myself, revving it up and weaving along the wooded trail, dodging snow-covered branches. The forest was mixed, evergreens and hardwoods interspersed. A chilly wind whipped my face as the snowmobile sped toward danger. That's when I realized I should have brought goggles. I spotted the place from afar, guided by a massive spruce draped in bright red lights. From a distance, it looked as though the tree had been splashed with fresh blood that had frozen into crimson icicles. "Wow! What a sight," I muttered, a chill running through me. But the first thing that really unsettled me was the silence, sharp and tense, like a deserted morgue on Halloween. Where are the bikers? Are they all passed out drunk already? I brought the snowmobile to a halt a few dozen yards from the house and carefully cocked my revolver. My heart hammered like it was about to leap out of my chest, and my mouth felt bone dry, like a lizard that had just crawled through the Sahara. I could have really used a sip of tea right then, just enough to get rid of that parched feeling. My hands were shaking. I'm no coward, but what terrified me was the unknown. There was also this awful, sweetish stench in the air. For some reason it drowned out the fresh, cold fragrance of the New Year's forest. Oh God, where had I smelled that before? Cloying, nauseating, thick, it clogged my nostrils, forcing me to hold back the urge to retch. I'd managed somehow. I'd been training my willpower since childhood, but that smell dragged me back to a memory I'd rather forget. Right, it was Christmas, Cranberry Village. I was visiting my grandparents. My parents stayed in town, but I'd always been drawn to the woods, nature, and the chance to roam free. Grandpa had just butchered a big hog, and as soon as I got off the train, I caught the smell of burning flesh. He was singeing the bristles. There'd be a feast soon, but as I walked closer, I heard our neighbours screaming and gunshots. The memory was so vivid that I started trembling in fear. Back then, Grandpa Greg was mauled by a starving bear about 5 minutes before I arrived. Drawn by the scent of fresh meat, the bear had smashed through the flimsy fence with a single blow and barged into the yard. Grandpa died almost instantly. They said one swipe crushed his skull and drove it into his torso. Then the bear tore his belly open, spilling his intestines. Blood was everywhere, along with feces and other stomach-churning mess. They did kill that bear eventually, but it didn't bring Grandpa Greg back. and I could never forget the smell of fresh human blood, thick like a red stew. And now the air was filled with that same smell of fresh human blood. Just like that day in the village, maybe 5 minutes after Grandpa died. My legs felt like lead as I came closer. What the hell happened here? Why wasn't there any music or shouting? And why was the snow in front of the house black? It should be pristine white on New Year's Eve. Still gripping my revolver, I moved forward and nearly fell when my foot skidded on a pile of someone's intestines. I swallowed a silent scream. Gun in hand, I aimed it at the house, ready for an attack at any second. Then a strange sound reached my ears. Drip, drip, drip. Slowly, I turned my head toward the spruce tree, and my blood froze. What I saw was horrific beyond words. Only now did I realize why those lights appeared uniformly red. Strung across the branches like holiday decorations were the dismembered remains of the bikers. Long ropes of bluish-grey entrails stretched from the treetop to the trunk, like some grotesque blood-spattered tinsel. Severed heads took the place of ornaments, while arms and legs stood in for candles. Judging by the fact that the blood hadn't even congealed yet, the massacre must have happened recently. It dripped onto the snow with a sickening plop, like a faulty faucet. Nearby lay a heap of gore-soaked biker clothing, like used tissues tossed aside, but worst of all was the stench. You couldn't escape it, even if you pressed your hand against your nose. Whoever or whatever did this was unbelievably strong and unimaginably cruel, annihilating a gang known for its own brutality. Their final moments must have been monstrous. The gaping mouths on those severed heads, twisted in a final silent scream, pulled me into a stare with death itself. An oppressive hush hung over the entire scene. Only the drip of blood disturbed the silence, forming puddles at the base of the towering spruce, and then I heard a faint crunch of snow underfoot. I froze in terror, turning around. I couldn't hold back the scream that had been building in my chest for so long.